Hey everybody, in this episode, myself and Ben, we have a discussion about us. How do we stay grounded? We're in here every single day podcasting. We have clients that we're taking care of. We have staff that we're tending to. How do we stay grounded? This is what we discussed today, and really the things that we do, what we practice in our lives to make sure that we stay healthy. And it's pretty cool. A certain segment of the episode, we talk about a client of ours that came through our program a year and a half ago, and we got to sit down and have lunch with him yesterday. And we get into detail about that, and you'll really get an understanding as to why we do what we do and how we're fueled every single day to continue to come out, put this content out, and show you how we're helping addicts and alcoholics on a daily basis recover from their addiction. So there's a ton of stuff in this episode. We know you're going to love it. Enjoy the show.
Hey, guess what, Tom?
What?
I got a affirmation box here that you were gifting to me, but since you forgot to hit record, we can reset, realign, restart, reclaim, and reignite, and
Sounds
record this
good.
all over again.
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
We got through 5 minutes of the first episode, and I forgot to hit record. So here we are again. First things first, thank you for tuning into the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
Also, go to realrecoverytalk.com/guide. There you can find a downloadable PDF, 5 steps that you could take to get your loved one the help that they need. And also go to realrecoverytalk.com/reconnect. Reconnect is our family program we put together. It's called Family Reconnect, and it's basically you have access to myself, Ben, and Tambini. We meet twice a month. You have full access to us. We walk with you through your whole entire situation. There's not a circumstance or a situation that we haven't seen or been in ourselves, so we're here to help you navigate through all that. We have a full curriculum built out for you. It's going to be challenging. You're going to have to think. You're going to have to put a little bit of work in, but in the end, you're going to get the result, hopefully, that you want. So go to realrecoverytalk.com/reconnect to sign up there. By the time this episode goes out, it will, in fact, be live. So I think that's all the homework, Ben. Yeah.
You out of breath?
Yeah, who do you think's better at that, me or Sal? I think Sal's better.
Bro, Sal's good.
Sal's been doing, they got 2,000 more episodes than we do. Like literally.
Literally.
2,000 more. Speaking of, our episode goes out tonight. Now, today is July 31st. This episode is, in fact, going to be going out, I believe, the second week of August. So, if you haven't had an opportunity, make sure to go check out our episode that we did with Mind Pump. You can go to Apple, Spotify primarily. If you're a podcast listener, if you like to watch your podcasts on YouTube, you can go to YouTube and search Mind Pump Show. It's Mind Pump Show. And you'll be able to find us there. I believe our episode number is 2342. I'm not exactly certain. I think that's it. But just look for mine and Ben's ugly mugs on the thumbnail, and you'll know that it's us. So I'm curious to see how that does. I think it'll do well. What do you think, Ben?
I'm nervous. I already told you that.
Yeah.
I don't get nervous. I could literally speak in front of thousands of people, but for some reason, I don't know, with that one. It was different being interviewed versus being the interviewer.
Pick an affirmation card, Ben.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
pick an
just pick
affirmation
one.
card. Oh, choose joy. I couldn't read the cursive. It's like, what's that first word? Oh, wait, is that not the affirmation? No, that is.
Choose joy.
Okay,
right.
I will.
Great. That was kind of dumb.
That was
I'm
a
going to have to
flop.
give these back to the therapist. I thought this might be like a good icebreaker, but these affirmation cards really suck.
Does it say affirmation cards on the box?
Positive affirmations, 52 cards to encourage self-love, positivity, growth, and gratitude. Boring. Let's talk addiction.
Let's talk addiction.
Shooting heroin in our neck. That's graphic.
Yeah,
Shouldn't
but it's
have
the
said
reality of what we're dealing with, which I'll use what you just said to segue into what I wanted to talk about. Tom actually came in here with the topic on his mind with the whiteboard of knowledge in front of us. Yep. I was like, no, I know what I want to do here. All right, so you were just talking about shooting heroin in the neck. The real deal of what we're dealing with. Let me tell you this. This morning, I went to a detox to sit down with a couple of clients. We do that, and I do that in order to put myself in front of someone. It does a couple of things. Rather than just being over the phone, which sometimes we have to do, but I actually took a trip down to Pompano today, which is, 50 minutes from here? Maybe an hour with traffic, but it's worth it because I get to put my eyes on somebody, and they also get to put eyes on me as far as now I know what I have coming in, how they present. They get comfortable with me because it's, when somebody doesn't know where they're going to. In this instance, there was an individual that had never heard of us, and the detox said, you have no plans after this. We're going to suggest Rock Recovery Center. And she's like, who's that? But I go down there. But where I'm going with this is the reality of what we deal with working in treatment. It is tough. We need so much patience. When I went in there this morning, there was an individual who, for 45 minutes, ran it on. And this is nothing against her. This is just alcoholism at its finest. Like, I've seen this person sober before and know what they're really like, but rambled on for 45 minutes how she's being mistreated by said detox, which was not the case whatsoever. But it really, what it came down to is this individual was going through withdrawal, wasn't getting as much Valium for the taper, which, let's call it what it is. You are going to be uncomfortable at some point during the detox process. You didn't drink yourself to a point of going through withdrawal just to experience no withdrawals. Like, the expectation should be, I'm going to be sick to some degree. Now, the detox is try to make it, most importantly, medically safe, so somebody doesn't die from the withdrawal, especially from alcohol and benzos. But my whole point is, and the whole thing is that how often do we, I have to take a step back as long as I've been doing this and reground myself and say, okay, I'm dealing with an alcoholic right now. And I think Tom and I both have kind of different approaches. I'd like to hear your take on this. I'm very I go around the side of the house and backdoor it in a very, I don't know, it probably takes a little longer than Tom's methods. And, I play the nice guy, if you will. Tom is very direct in telling people what it is, but he has a way of delivering it that is just very straightforward, to the point, and also gets the job done. But how often, Tom, do you find yourself having to say in your head, okay, let me reground myself because this person is annoying the heck out of me. I don't want to sit here and pretend like we don't get annoyed.
Yeah, we're not saints. Shout out to Slipknot. We are not saints. No, that's not the right song. Anyways, yeah, I think that you're exactly right. Now, here's the thing. Outcomes not oftentimes, but sometimes our outcomes are different. It really depends on the person. There's people that I have no business even talking to because I don't have the level of patience that you do. And I don't have the level of even awareness that you do when it comes to navigating these conversations with people. I'm very I have the blinders on. I know what it is that I want to accomplish. I know what it is that I want them to accomplish. And for me, I take the path of least resistance, which is just grab the bull by the horns and tell you how it is. Now, I would say this. My approach oftentimes, and don't take this the wrong way, I feel like when it comes to dealing with parents, I have a much easier time navigating them than you do.
I'll agree with that.
When it comes to clients, you have a much easier time navigating them than I do because Ben has a very gentle approach when it comes to the clients. And oftentimes they need that because they are very sick. They're suffering. They've been through a lot. Parents, in my opinion, they don't need a gentle approach because oftentimes parents are the issue or play a large part in the issue, and they can't really, and again, I'm not saying this as if like, I'm not mean to the parents. It's just like, you have to understand you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. In fact, what you are doing, the things that you're saying, the way that you're presenting is detrimental to the outcome that we want for people. And so when it comes to parents, I'm able to get my message across in a very assertive way. And for whatever reason, they understand and they will listen. With clients, on the other hand, though, sometimes my approach doesn't work as well because, they're more rough around the edges. They're more apt to tell me to go fly a kite. They like, I may sound like their parents to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's an interesting conversation. I think that every single person that walks into our door is obviously different. Their situations are unique, but we're all cut from the same cloth. And I think that you have to be able to navigate and understand people's personality types, their ways that they communicate best. It's helpful if you, and here's the other thing, you're a very good listener. And so you could pick up on these things and like, you'll like get the whole history of the person and stuff like that before you start engaging in conversation. Me, not so much. It's like, I want to have this conversation. I want to be done with it without taking into consideration any of their past, any of their history, any of maybe their traumas, their stuff like that. And so it's difficult for me to do that. Does that answer your question?
No, it definitely does. I think that we do have two different approaches, and I don't think either one is less effective than the other. I will say this. What frustrates me is Tom gets done in 5 minutes, which takes me 5 hours on the phone because of the way that I go about it. But Tom jumps on there, and I've always like really respected this about him. It's kind of a gift where I hear him say to a parent, like, here's what you're going to do. And they just do it. Where if I do that, dude, for some reason, they throw it back at me.
Yeah.
Where like I have to build that rapport and trust where Tom just kind of demands authority.
Yeah, I think so. Well, because I think sometimes, oftentimes parents and loved ones they're looking for answers. They're not looking to build a relationship. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Like, and I'm building a relationship with you, but I'm building a relationship with you based off of like the here and now. Like, okay, listen, we have time to get into all the weeds after, but let's at least come to this understanding. Your son, your daughter, they're messed up. They need help. So let's just cut out all the bullshit and let's just get right to it. This is what we need to do. And, listen, it doesn't work all the time, but, I think parents and loved ones, that's ultimately what they want. And all the other fluff and everything else is, really just, I don't know. It's useless information at that time.
That makes sense. It definitely makes sense. And I guess part of what makes me comfortable doing what I'm doing is knowing that I have a good relationship with the parents. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. I want them to know that I care and that I'm invested. But again, it's time consuming. And that's where, like, I brought up patience when I first started talking. Like, there's sometimes where when I get a phone call from a parent, I know I'm on the phone for the next hour. Where I'm like, and I got to prepare myself. There might be all other kinds of stuff going on, and when you work in the treatment industry, there's fires and emergencies all the time. People are having mental health breakdowns. You never know what could happen. It's like, if you have a plan for the day and a schedule, expect for there to be quite a few interruptions because clients, parents, they're unpredictable. And I think, even with all our knowledge, I think my whole point is even we have to take a step back and say, hey, let's pump the brakes for a second. Remember, we're dealing with an addict, or we're dealing with an inexperienced parent who doesn't know and have all the knowledge that we have. And sometimes in my mind, there's so much information that I want to get out to them, but a lot of the times it's too much information. And that's where I like your approach with like, let's just trim the fat and get right to it. Here's what's getting done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's like the famous saying in sales, whoever talks the most loses.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk the most. I want to hear what's happening, but I want the conversation to revolve around the goal. Mm-hmm. What's the goal? I don't listen to trauma. And let me say this. I too am on the phone with parents a lot of times for an hour plus. It's not like, I don't want you coming away from this episode thinking, oh my gosh, I can't even call Tom and have a conversation with him. He's going to give me 5 minutes. That's not the case. I will listen and listen and listen until I start to know that, okay, now this is becoming a waste of my time in particular. And I had this happen relatively recently, probably within the last month. I had a mom call, and she wanted to get her son into treatment, and typical, drug addict kid in and out of treatment centers, wouldn't stay at a treatment center if you held a gun to his head. I mean, just leaving all of them, so on and so forth. And mom would call me, and I don't understand. I've given him such a good life, and I've given him everything, and she called me probably consistently every day for 4 days. Day one, I'll listen to you and you'll take my suggestions, hopefully. I was on the phone with her for probably an hour and a half, and exactly who
I do know who you're talking about.
She calls me again the next day. Her son did end up going to detox that very first night, but he left after 12 hours or something like that. And I told the mom, I said that on that very first phone call, I said, the only way he's going to leave the detox is if he knows he can go back to your house. And what's he do? He leaves the detox, goes back to mom. Mom calls and says, I don't know what to do. I said, well, where's he at? Oh, he's upstairs in his room. Why is he there? And then she starts going into detail as to really why this isn't his fault. And this is the law enforcement's fault. And then she starts getting into the history of how he was Baker acted one time unlawfully and yada, yada, yada. And I said to her, whatever, I'll call her,
Susie.
Susie seems to be the go-to. I said, Susie, with all due respect, it's 9:30 at night. I'm getting ready to go to bed. I appreciate the call. You know what you need to do. You're more than welcome to call me tomorrow and give me an update. Okay. And so she calls me the next day. He ended up going to detox again that night. The night that I told her that. Same thing, left. She calls me the next day. Same thing, And this time, now my wife is at home. And Amanda, she's privy to a lot of these conversations just because she's there and, yada, yada. It's not like I put them on speakerphone or anything like that, but, she can oftentimes pick up what's going on. And I said, Susie, I don't want to talk to you again. I understand, Tom, but I don't know if you fully comprehend the severity of the situation. I said, Susie, I've been working in this field now longer than a decade, and there's not a situation probably that I haven't come across in some capacity. I've talked to you over the past 2 days, a total of probably 3 or 4 hours, all in the evening. So I'm giving you my time, and I'm giving you my suggestions and what I know will work. And I know for fact, I will all but guarantee, 99.9% chance guarantee that if you do what I say, it will work. And you have failed to do so. So I'm just telling you right now, do not call me until you do what I said. Okay. All right, fine. And she hangs up and he goes to detox that night, leaves again. Calls me on the 4th day. I said, Susie, he's in detox, right? Oh, Tom, he was, but he ended up leaving. I said, Susie, I have nothing more to offer you. I said, where is he at? He's here. I have nothing more to offer you. And hung up the phone. I didn't hang up on her. I said, you know what you need to do. I'll be here, but don't call me again until he's been in detox at least 72 hours. So what does she do? She starts calling our Google line. She circumvents, and then she gets on the phone with Destiny. And Destiny calls me. Hey, I got this mom. You want to fill me in on what's going on here? And I said, no, not really. No, I don't. Just tell her that you spoke to me and that she knows what she needs to do and leave it at that. And I haven't heard back. So and that's an instance where this mom in particular is incapable of being honest with herself. Mm-hmm. Just the same as our clients are incapable of being honest with themselves sometimes, which prevents them from staying sober. This mom is that exact way. And unfortunately, her son is going to suffer the consequences.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't she an RN or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was a very high up nurse at a hospital, and that was part of the issue.
That was part of the issue. That's why I brought it up.
She was too smart for her own good, And 2 episodes ago, we just released an episode with Marshall. And Marshall is a psychiatric nurse. He's been a psych nurse for the better part of, 15 years, I would gather. And I tell you what, that dude is doing awesome. I mean, phenomenal. He really came in, did everything that we expected him to do. And I was worried about that in the beginning. I'm like, oh, a psychiatric nurse, that ought to be interesting, because you're dealing with mental health and these sorts of things on a day-to-day basis, but he crushed it.
I was sad that I missed that episode. I was super tied down doing other stuff that day and just couldn't get up here. But since you brought it up, and this goes back to what we always talk about even with all of our experience in this field, if I have to deal with it with a loved one, I'm going to hand it off to a professional and let them run the show because I'm emotionally compromised. But along the same lines, Marshall in particular, in one of my groups, I forget exactly what the topic was that I was running, but he brought up, he's like, yeah, I'm a psychiatric nurse. And what I realize now is that even with all of my knowledge, I need help. My knowledge doesn't count because it even with the knowledge that I have, I still ended up here. So what good's it doing me right now? And I really appreciated that. Like all the previous experience that he has from helping other people, didn't keep him out of treatment. It was pretty insightful the way that he described it. So I'm excited to hear that episode, to be straightforward.
Episode 401. So if you haven't heard it, make sure you go check it out. Episode 401 with Marshall. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing. Going back to what you were talking about in the very beginning, working in this field in and of itself is extremely frustrating. It's stressful. But I tell you what, the outcomes that we see with a lot of our clients and the parents and the loved ones and the stories that we get from emails and stuff, which we have a couple we need to go over after this.
The rewards. Let me touch on this because this happened yesterday.
Yeah.
We had a past client who has close to a year and a half reached out to me and asked if we could go get a bite to eat. So I went, and Tom was finishing up Adventure Group and just so happened to swing in. But I'm not going to say his name, for anonymity purposes.
He's coming on the podcast.
He does want to come on the podcast, but I'll leave that.
You scheduled it, didn't you?
Yeah, for Friday, right?
Next Friday?
Next Friday, I think. Point is like this, I was even telling him, this is where the reward of it comes in. He looked me dead in the eye and his eyes were watering, and he's like, I just want to let you know, you literally saved my life.
Wow.
And I was like, dang, dude. My eyes started watering. I'm like, I'm not going to cry. I'm at CR Chicks eating,
This is after he waited for me to leave. He's like, I'm waiting for that emotionless bastard to leave before I, yeah.
Well, we did get a video of you with his like
Chihuahua.
8-week-old Chihuahua, and man, I wish we need to make a short out of that video so people can see. Tom has no emotion for people.
Send it to me.
But little tiny dogs, yeah, he was making all kinds of strange noises, and
I'll put it in the YouTube video.
side of Tom giving this dog kisses. Wish you treated people that good, Tom. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
That story of that individual in particular is, you know, what's interesting. He asked us a question. He said, looking back on everything, keep in mind, he walked into our doors a year and a half ago. He asked Ben and I, he says, if you can remember that moment, do you think I was going to be successful or something like that?
He said, did you think I'd be one of the ones that would make it?
Right. And both of us said yes.
Tell him why he said yes, though, because this was powerful.
So this individual was a referral to us by a good friend of ours, Matt Kingery. He's a private therapist, and Matt knows us very well, and so he sends this guy over to us because he knows he needs help. Now, he's an accountant. He's very, has a good job, all the things, but he walked into our doors on his own accord. He paid for treatment. He didn't have insurance, or if he did have insurance, we didn't accept it. So he paid a lot of money to come to treatment to us. He has had his own apartment just 5 minutes from here, but chose to move in with us for a period of time because he knew it was a recommendation that we were making. Of course, it would have been easy and convenient for him to live at his apartment and just drive in and drive out every day, but you're missing 80% of what treatment has to offer. So he made a conscious decision to move in with us, and I can't remember exactly how long he stayed with us, maybe 30 days or 60 days.
Yeah, I think it was 60.
And then the later part of his treatment, he did transition back home to his apartment. But he was the type of person, if every client could be like this person, man, it would be phenomenal. He did everything that we asked him to do, no matter what. And this is what we get.
You know what it is, too? And I'll just go ahead and say it, because I think he said this to me after you left, but he said that was the biggest financial investment I've ever made. The largest sum of money he's ever spent on anything in his life.
Right.
And here's the thing, like, it's funny because actually Mind Pump was talking about this with personal training. You're selling somebody something like that, and they use this example, actually. I'll just go ahead and use theirs because it was very simple to understand. But, if you're a car salesman, you go and you pay for this car. They tell you what the features are, you know how it drives, you test drove it. You leave with the car like you got it in your hand.
Yeah.
Where with this, you are paying for something which you're not going to see the results of right away. In fact, you still have to do the work. So you're paying the money and you have to do the work. He was just so invested in himself that I had no doubt in my mind that he was going to make it.
Yeah.
Because so much of the time it's taken for granted. I'm not, and for what it's worth, I'm just going to say this out loud. We have brought it up before, but a lot of times, people take insurance for granted. Because in reality, like I'm just going to throw out a random number. Treatment centers cost, you could go to Malibu Passages for $100,000 a month, or you could find a place that's $10,000 a month. So it's across the board,
or free.
Yeah.
I mean, state-run facilities and stuff.
Yeah, but
which we don't recommend. It's better than nothing. But
yeah, I forget where I was going with this now.
Sorry.
Shoot.
Well, let me tell you something real quick while you think about this. I was watching Kill Tony last night. You ever watch Kill Tony?
No.
With Tony Hinchcliffe?
You showed me like a clip.
Oh, it's so funny. Shout out to Kill Tony. Probably one of the funniest 2 hours. I look forward to it every week. He brings up comedians. You have 60 seconds uninterrupted. And at the end of 60 seconds, you're going to hear a kitty meow. And if you don't stop, then he brings out the West Hollywood Bear. And then it's followed up by an interview where he asks you questions to figure out what's going on in your life and stuff like that, and makes things very uncomfortable for you, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, this girl comes up. She has her 60 seconds uninterrupted, and she really had a good set. Her 60 seconds was great. And after she was in like the interview portion, and turns out she had just celebrated a year recovery, a year of sobriety.
Nice.
And, they were talking about that and stuff, and she referenced Promises in Malibu, and flat out said, like, do not go there. And I was like, oh boy, this is a bad PR because millions of people watch this show.
Yeah.
So I just thought that you said Passages. She brought up Promises. I think they're similar, or they're
I'm not going to say that I know either one. I don't know anybody that works there or anything like that. But if you look at the commercials, it's basically a spa treatment.
Yeah.
If I am recalling
Yeah.
correctly. I could be wrong about what I'm stating. Here, that's where I was going with this, is I think sometimes people take for granted, like, the insurance, like, you know, what is it? If you're getting insurance through an employer, your parents are providing it because you're 26 or younger, like, what costs you? You're getting thousands of dollars worth of services that cost as much as a new vehicle for a very small amount of money when you, in consideration of what you're paying for your insurance premium. Like, people take that for granted. And the thing with this gentleman that we had lunch with is, like, again, he invested in himself.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy for him to, like, dude, when I go buy a car, man, I'm like, oh my God, I got to put down all this money, and it's stressful, you know. But point is like, he didn't take it for granted. He knew he had one shot. He wasn't going to be able to afford to come back again. A lot of times people have an insurance card and they're like, oh, I can go back again. Oh, I can go back again.
They use their insurance card like an Amex.
Yeah, and Tom always says the recovery begins when the insurance ends.
Yep.
And that's an unfortunate thing to say, but it's the truth. And I'm not going to make a blanket statement that everybody's like that. But you do see that happen. We see people become institutionalized and they will self-sabotage just so they can go to another treatment center. And really, they go nowhere in life. You know, it's a sad thing to see. You know, to be straight up, I was talking about, to revert back to the patience that we have to have. A lot of the times, man, we see that runaway train going. We have a case here right now that we've all seen the runaway train going for 2 months, right? And it doesn't mean that we're going to, like, stop the person's treatment because we don't think that they're going to get to where they need to go. We're constantly reminding, like, hey, you know, this discharge is coming up. This discharge is coming up. And at the end, if the client hasn't done the work, it's on them. But it can be, sometimes I get sad, but that sadness also, like, when I'm in fear, literally, one of my go-tos is anger.
Yeah.
Like, if I watch, for instance, good example, one time I saw Kai on his little scooter, and he went face first into the ground, dude, and was, like, bleeding everywhere. And for some reason, like, when I'm in fear, I go to anger.
Dude, me too.
I'm like, raw, what'd you do? Whose fault is it, right? Like,
yeah, I'm the same way.
And a lot of times, because that's my go-to, like, in my mind and heart, I'll do that with the clients. But then I got to take a step back and say, Ben, what are you doing, dude? Why are you angry about this? It's just fear. You care about this person and you're just in fear for their future. But at the end of the day, you know, I was just having a conversation with a mom the other day where I had to, I guess you could say, for a lack of a better way, I was clearing her conscience because her son had some sobriety time. Then he went back out, psychiatric, ended up back in a hospital, pretty severe situation. Then he got 5 months again. And I was part of helping in that intervention process. And then ended up back in a hospital again, complete psychosis, like Baker Act for meth. And, you know, I was assuring her, I was like, look, Mom, you've done everything that you can. I said, tell me something that you haven't done to try to help your son. Yeah. And she's like, I can't think of anything. I said, well, I know it doesn't necessarily make this process any easier. However, do your best to clear your conscience that you've given every opportunity for your son to succeed in sobriety. And that's a hard thing to hear, man, because parents don't want to feel powerless over their kid's addiction, right?
Right.
Like, but it's the truth. And sometimes you have to break that to them. Like, you could do everything right as a parent or a loved one trying to help your addict or alcoholic and still not get the result that you want. But the part that you can do is work on yourself and come to peace with the fact that you did everything that you could. You provided them the platforms for success. That's what we do for our kids in life. We give them the best opportunity we can. How many parents out there, for instance, gave great opportunities for their children and somehow they end up in prison? And they look back and they're like, well, you had a wonderful chance. It's, at the end of the day, it's the same kind of thing.
That's why we tell people, don't tie yourself to the outcome.
Yeah, we're not in the results business. We're in the business of showing up.
What? Yep, that's right.
And it's kind of funny because, I don't know, I've been feeling a lot of this the last 48 hours. And, you know, we were even talking in the lunchroom with our therapist about it. Sometimes they have to remind me. Sometimes I have to remind them. Sometimes Tom chimes in. What'd you say earlier downstairs? Oh,
What'd I say?
Oh, I don't remember, dude. But you were so direct again, the way that you are.
I don't know. It's probably towards Maya.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, no, I mean, that's all, you know, but you know what? In the end, we love what we do. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we get to see the true fruits of our efforts, our clients' efforts, the family's efforts. And, you know, so that's what keeps us trucking along.
Yeah. So, but if anybody thinks we're a bunch of robots and don't get affected by this, it's not the case.
Yeah.
We constantly have to take a step back and evaluate the way that we're feeling about a situation. And again, use our experience, our professionalism to realign ourselves with being in the best position to help and the best approach to help as well.
Yeah. It's hot in here.
It is hot.
What are you doing tonight, Ben?
I'm actually speaking at a 7:00 meeting down at Crossroads Club in Delray.
Fun.
Which is cool, man. I got a
Is
phone.
that NA or AA?
AA. Oh. AA. I got a phone call from a guy that I've never met before whose sponsor knows me, which is really cool, man. Where, you know, I'm going to speak and they're going to be sitting next to somebody I've never met in my life. Yeah. You know, it's just the way that recovery works and, you know, in particular being part of a 12-step fellowship, there's just so many opportunities. It's an absolute honor to be taking on somebody's word. Hey, you should ask this guy to come down and speak for you. And
yeah,
I never even met this dude.
It's pretty cool, man. Community, building relationships. I want to say one thing before we wrap this up. You were talking about that gentleman investing in himself. Mm-hmm. I want to emphasize this. You know, myself, Ben Tambini, we've been putting out this content for years at this point. And the Family Reconnect program that we released isn't because we're looking to make oodles of money. I mean, we're not going to. Given the amount of time and effort and energy that goes into the podcast on the production side of things and everything, we have a lot of money that goes out to be able to make this happen twice a week. But it really is something it's an investment in yourself, you know, just the same as what he did coming into treatment. Now, what we're charging for the Family Reconnect is a very small percentage of what it would cost somebody to come here for treatment for obvious reasons. But if you're hemmed up with the idea of, oh, I don't want to pay this money, I would just challenge yourself to look at it as an investment because, you know, if you're listening to this podcast and you resonate with anything that we're saying in any capacity, you stand to gain a lot from really what this program is designed to do. And honestly, to have access to us, because listen, I'm not putting us up on some sort of pedestal, but I'm going to put us up on a pedestal for a second. We've been there. We've done that. Myself and Ben were in long-term recovery. We've worked with thousands of people at this point, families included. We know exactly what it is that you're going through. I can all but guarantee. And we can help you navigate that. And oftentimes you need somebody from the outside. We talk about all the time building community and building your network of people and stuff like that. That's great. You still should continue to do that. But there's nothing wrong with investing in yourself, because it can only amplify what you have going on. And, with the program in and of itself, having access to us, I think in and of itself is very valuable. But what we go into, the things that we discuss, the conversations that will be had, you're going to learn a lot about your situation and how you can navigate it. And so I wanted to bring that up because a lot of times parents, family members, loved ones, they don't think that they necessarily need to, but I'm here to challenge you and say that you do, so that's it. Any final thoughts, Ben?
No, I enjoyed that conversation.
All right. Well, is that it?
That is it.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.